What was the true gift that the Magi gave at Epiphany? My brothers and sisters, as we continue on in the Christmas season here in the wake of the Feast of the Epiphany, it's an important time to pause and reflect a little bit on the Magi and the gift that they gave. Now, we all know the gold, frankincense, myrrh, and of course we've all been taught about how those gifts link up with Jesus being a king, being a prophet, and being a priest. I've been doing some deeper looking, and I'm very thankful to Raymond Arroyo, who did a wonderful interview on the three kings, because I think the gift that the three kings give is oftentimes underappreciated. We know that their gifts are prophetic and that they're gifts that really show and highlight that Jesus is the Messiah. But the identity of the kings so often is lost in a lot of what happened and was taught in the medieval period. In fact, even just calling them kings comes from the medieval period. They're really magi. But how many were there? Where are they from? And who were they really? Well, ancient tradition shows us that three kings, three magi, may have been ancient Jewish priests who were in exile after the first temple was destroyed, and that they lived in exile in the southern Jordan region, and that these descendants of Melchizedek priests were the ones who actually came to offer these gifts to the Christ child. Explains a whole lot more why King Herod was in such alert. It's like the old guard was coming back, the first temple versus the second temple period. It also makes sense of why many of the chief priests and scribes would have missed the prophecies, because most of the prophecies about Jesus' birth were all first temple prophet prophecies. And this makes much more sense on the gifts, because the gifts that these descendants of ancient priests were giving were actually gifts given to the new high priest. Gold to be used in his garments to show that he served the Holy of Holies, that of course was glittered in gold, with the Ark of the Covenant that was in the first temple, lost after the exiles, which was believed to be the presence of God, containing the Ten Commandments, the tablets, containing Moses' staff and a bit of manna. You have frankincense that was offered in the Holy of Holies as really kind of a smokescreen to the mercy seat, to the Ark of the Covenant for the high priest, when he implored God's mercy upon the people. In this instance, a sign of reverence to avoid direct contact with God, who is perfectly holy and we are not. And myrrh, which was an oil used to consecrate the high priest and, quite frankly, the king. And this myrrh was given to him as a sign of this new consecration that wasn't practiced in the second temple period after those exiles. My brothers and sisters, if this is true, this has a lot more meaning, because Jesus truly is the high priest. And he is the one who is reconciling the Jewish faith, and basically in its many periods. But much of our prophecies about Christ, about being the Messiah, come from that older Jewish tradition. You see a similar thing happen in the Catholic Church these days. We have a lot of people wanting to go back to older traditions, if you will, traditions that have been, and are really kind of rejecting some of the modern turns that have been done. I truly believe there's place for both in the church, but we need to really look at this and be people who are steeped in tradition, steeped in the teaching that Christ has given us, and really be mindful of the ways that God is calling us forward in our faith by calling us to be in continuity with the past 2,000 years. The three magi really are that symbol for us of that continuity, of the full Old Testament, of all the temple practice, of the Melchizedek line of priests and prophets, now leading us to the Messiah. And of course, Christ is calling us to be in continuity now for 2,000 years in the church, that we may truly come to adore him and reverence him, but to do it on the shoulders of giants. There's another thing that's interesting. How many magi were there? Well, these ancient Syriac texts talk about 12, representing the 12 tribes of Israel. And of course, this multi-generational approach, as this priesthood was being handed down to successive families. But the thought, why is there three? Well, three gifts. It's easier for our nativity scenes. 3 kings, 3 gifts, less statues to carve. But there are truly 12 magi Again, that number 12 for the 12 apostles and the foundation of the church that Christ has entrusted to us. We're celebrating the baptism of the Lord this weekend. And this is an important time for us to really reflect upon the foundation of our faith, which is being baptized members of Christ. It's so important to remember that the baptism of John the Baptist is not the baptism that Jesus has entrusted us. Totally different ends. But for us, how important it is to remember our baptism. And to remember that we are baptized into something so much larger than ourselves. I'm sure the Magi didn't realize the true gift that they were given to Christ. They were giving these prophetic gifts, knowing that this is what they were supposed to bring, supposed to give. But quite frankly, they were part of something so much larger than you can possibly imagine. And we too, my brothers and sisters, are part of something so much larger than we can possibly imagine. And so this is where it's so important that we are faithful to God's call in our life. We are faithful to the continuity and tradition of the church that we have been entrusted. But in that faithfulness, we find great joy. And we find great zeal. Because quite frankly, we are called to be like the Magi, living our lives as a gift that future generations can unwrap, unpack, and understand. And we are called to be part of this lineage that is leading all of us to our eternal homeland. God bless all of you. Magnificat anima mea Dominum. My soul magnifies the Lord.